So I want everyone a little bit to think back when they were like 3 years old and what they wanted to be when you grew up, right? So just kind of think on that moment really quick. And when I was 3 years old, this is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a dancing doctor, ballerina, astronaut, who moonlights on the weekends, maybe as like a social studies teacher. So clearly I had this wild imagination, but really, for as long as I can remember, I have been fascinated about the world of work and working. So literally, this is a picture of me probably like days old, trying on my first headphones. And self-fulfilling prophecy, I am a sound engineer by trade. So that actually worked out. This is me at 3 years old going as my alter ego, Dr. Dick. Don't ask me how I came up with that name. I was being very exploratory. But really, I was just fascinated about what people did all day, and just asking all these questions and exploring, what this meant to have a career. And what I realized as I got older is that the reason why I was so fascinated about the world of work was because I was fascinated about the stories of the people who lived them, right? It's not that I wanted to just be a primatologist. I wanted to be a primatologist like Jane Goodall. I wanted to be a leader and a social activist like Nelson Mandela. I wanted to be an oceanographer like Jacques Cousteau, and if you grew up in the 90s, this is the only mayor I knew. So if I was going to be a mayor of Chicago, it was going to be, my image of what it meant to be a mayor was a white Irish guy. But I was fascinated by these stories and what it meant to have a career. But this is what I realized is how most people are exposed to jobs. Very a text-based job description. And it was very opposite from what I saw as being these very compelling stories of people that I knew that explored these careers. And so this is really where my journey began, was exploring the world of hiring, and that despite the fact that the workplace is full of opportunities and is super inspiring, the way we hire people, the way we tell those stories is not. And what we realize is that job descriptions don't show what a job is like. Resumes don't depict the candidate's skills. And this became ever more apparent a number of years ago when I began this journey as a design researcher working with young people here in Chicago, here in Baltimore, who despite being really talented, motivated, some of them had never left their neighborhoods. Many of them didn't look at on resumes. They had records. And so they were being shut out from the hiring process. And what we realized when we took a step back, that it wasn't just about these 6 million opportunity youth who were being shut out from the hiring process. It was the majority of Americans. Veterans, unemployed, underemployed, immigrants, 6 million returning citizens, 130 million without a college degree. And I can only imagine if I were to ask kind of you guys what it's like to find a job, to get hired, that you would equally have some of these frustrations. And so this is where kind of the backdrop by which kind of my work and my life's purpose began. And it really came down to this, that you cannot be what you cannot see, and that there was something just dramatically wrong with the hiring process and how we were connecting people to jobs. And what we saw, especially with young people, was that visuals, that storytelling kept their attention. And our brains are wired for this, right? We retain 65% of what we see and hear versus what we read. We retain information 3 times longer with a visual than what we read. And in fact, our brains are wired for visuals. Our brains are wired for stories, because when we hear a good story, it produces something fancy called oxytocin. We're able to empathize with one another. We're able to relate to one another. And who wouldn't want that in the workplace? And who wouldn't want to inspire that when you're trying to hire that next candidate? And so this is really where we saw that what we wanted to do was to envision a new way to hire. And we call it experiential hiring. And so in 2014, my colleague Abby and I quit our jobs. And inevitably was quitting our jobs for impact. That what we wanted to do was provide a new way, not just to help candidates get exposed to the world of work, but to really give companies this new way to communicate their jobs and communicate their company culture in a way that really just showed how compelling these workplaces were. And so it started out just the two of us, just kind of a ragtag team, a sound engineer who then picked up filming, learning as we go, but realizing that there was something very powerful about being mobile, about being efficient and being able to tell these stories very authentically from the employees themselves. And so Skill Scout has been around for about almost 3 years, past July. And that this has really become our mission, is to bring the art of storytelling into the workplace. And it's interesting, you know, when we started this, we built this business on the shoulders of small to mid-sized manufacturers, really. We started out with entry level, and that's really where we began. We thought this was going to be a regional model, working with some of the most amazing manufacturers and logistics companies that you've never heard of. But like, we just did a tour of Nike, and we're in the belly of an airplane through American Airlines to be able to see how our cash is processed and the many lives of cash with Bring Security. And so it's been such a surreal journey to see that we've been able to work with companies large and small. And it doesn't necessarily mean that working with Nike makes it any more meaningful, but it really shows that there is a need for how we tell stories in the workplace and the power that that has in making meaningful hiring connections. A couple of things that we're also really proud of is that we want to position HR to be chief human storytellers of their business. So it isn't just us as a crew being able to come out, it's what are we doing to position them to be storytellers. And so we've created things around a DIY video offering, right? Being able to provide HR with video recipes of the kinds of stories they can tell, be it about celebrating their veterans, celebrating what they're thankful for, or what it is to work in that job. And I think most meaningful to me and to my co-founder is that, you know, we started out with this idea of how are we going to help companies attract diverse talent? We need to model it for ourselves as well. And so that's always been something that's been really core to us, is that we wanted our workforce to be just as innovative as the solutions we offer. It has been more than once where client companies and staff do a double take, seeing a bunch of black and brown women in their workplace. And I'm very, very proud of that. Because when they look at us, I want them to see that that's the kind of workforce that they should have. And so I want to continue to be able to build that and to work on that. And this is my why. You know, my why is that I am here to be blatant about the diversity I seek. And I am committed to building a company heavily represented by women, with an emphasis on women of color, and I'm just going to raise my flag high and say that proudly. And I will say my why for being here is that if you cannot see the community, be the community. As Colette may have mentioned, it's kind of difficult to be able to find each other in a more accessible way. I think it'd be too embarrassing now that this is recorded to tell you what I've tried to do to find amazing women to work with. And my why for being here is to be able to connect with all of you. And as Colette mentioned, we don't have a website intentionally. We don't know what or when our next event is going to be, because we want whatever happens next to be representative of the voices in this room. So it is such an honor to have you here, to be able to learn and to grow from all of you. So thank you so much, and we will bring out our next speakers.